They tried to break you in silence. Now watch you rise without saying a word. Ladies and gentlemen, they thought your silence meant surrender. They thought the quiet meant you had nothing left, that you were broken beyond repair. But what they didn't see was what God was doing behind the scenes. While they whispered about your downfall, heaven was writing your comeback. You weren't losing. It was just the pause before the rise. You weren't finished. You were just gathering strength, because some of the most powerful moves are made in silence. You didn't have to argue. You didn't have to explain. You just kept walking, kept healing, kept trusting, and now, without saying a single word, you're about to rise. And every person who tried to break you in the dark will have no choice but to watch you shine in the light. Your silence was never weakness. It was strength in restraint. There comes a moment in life when you realize that silence is not the absence of strength. It's the proof of it. You see, when they lied on your name, when they tried to twist your truth and throw dirt on your character, you had every reason to defend yourself. You had every right to clap back, to retaliate, to drag their names through the same mud they tried to drown you in. But you didn't, not because you were weak, not because you were afraid. You held your peace because you knew that real power doesn't panic. You knew that a lion doesn't need to roar to prove it's the king of the jungle. Sometimes the most dangerous thing in the room is the one that's still, composed, and focused. That's who you became, and that's what they couldn't understand. They thought silence was surrender, but they didn't realize that it was strategy. They couldn't see that while they were loud in their destruction, you were quiet in your preparation. While they were broadcasting your pain, you were building your purpose, and that restraint you showed, that self-control, that was God working through you, showing you how to hold your fire until it was time to ignite the world with your purpose. Because anyone can talk, anyone can make noise, but not everyone can carry the weight of silence with dignity. Not everyone can be still and trust that the truth will stand when the lies fall apart. That takes a different kind of strength. That takes faith. That takes vision. That takes knowing who you are, even when the world is trying to tell you otherwise. They laughed when you didn't fight back. They smirked when you walked away. They assumed that your quiet meant defeat. But what they didn't see was the fire burning inside you, the storm you had learned to calm. They didn't know the discipline it took to hold your tongue, to smile when your heart was breaking, to keep walking when you wanted to fall. And while they tried to label you weak, broken, or soft, the truth is, only warriors know the power of restraint. Only the strong can endure silence when everything inside them is screaming for justice. Only those with vision can keep moving forward without shouting for recognition. And that's what you are. You are a warrior in disguise. You see, silence is not passive. It's not quitting. It's intentional. It's powerful. It's choosing your battles wisely. It's knowing that some victories aren't won with words. They're won with actions. You didn't need to make an announcement. You didn't need to put your pain on display. You understood that healing happens in the shadows. Growth takes root in the dark. And while they were watching your outer shell, they missed the transformation happening in your soul. They thought the stillness meant nothing was happening, but that's only because they don't know what it looks like when God is working behind the curtain. They didn't see the seeds being planted. They didn't see the strength being rebuilt. They didn't see the calling being refined. Now the same silence they mocked is becoming your testimony. The same stillness they misread is becoming your strength. Because the one who can rise without speaking, who can walk through the fire without screaming, is the one who has learned to trust a power greater than themselves. And while they were busy making noise, you were becoming unstoppable. That's what they didn't count on. They didn't expect you to come back stronger, wiser, and more focused than ever. They didn't expect your silence to echo louder than their words, but here you are, rising. And not a single word needs to be spoken. This isn't about proving them wrong. This is about proving to yourself that you were never what they tried to make you feel like. You were never broken. You were bruised. You were never finished. You were refining. You were never gone. You were growing. And now every day you show up in strength. Every day you walk in peace. Every step you take toward your calling is a silent sermon to those who underestimated you. Let them talk, let them wonder, let them spin their stories. You don't have to say a thing. Your life, your peace, your purpose. That is the loudest response you'll ever give. Because real power doesn't shout. It doesn't seek attention. It doesn't demand validation. Real power moves in silence and makes the world turn its head in awe. You held your peace, and now your peace is holding you. And as you rise, not with vengeance, not with bitterness, but with quiet confidence and divine purpose, every soul that tried to break you in secret will have no choice but to witness the glory that can only come from grace. So keep walking, keep building, keep rising, and say nothing, because your silence is louder than any noise they could ever make. They thought breaking you quietly would leave no evidence they didn't come at you in broad daylight. No, their attacks were subtle, strategic, cloaked in kindness and wrapped in manipulation. They didn't swing loud blows. They used whispers, exclusion, passive jabs, and calculated silence to try and make you doubt yourself. They didn't have to destroy you with force. They aimed to dismantle you from the inside out, because they believed that if they broke you quietly, behind closed doors, no one would believe you. No one would notice. No one would come to your rescue. They thought if they did it in silence, you'd crumble in silence, and your pain would be invisible to the world. But what they didn't realize is that God sees what man overlooks. They didn't realize that there's a record kept in heaven of every tear, every betrayal, every wound you suffered when no one else was watching. They tried to strip you of your confidence in such a way that you'd question if it was even happening. Gaslight you, isolate you, slowly chip away at your self-worth. They moved like shadows, hoping to leave no fingerprints. The kind of people who smile in your face and cut behind your back. The kind of people who act like friends while planting seeds of sabotage in your path. And they were banking on the fact that the world would never see it, that you'd be left trying to explain a pain too complex to put into words. But here's the thing, they miscalculated your spirit. They misjudged the resilience in your bones. Because even though the world didn't see it, you saw it. Even though they tried to bury it, God saw it. And what's done in the dark will always be exposed in the light. You endured the kind of warfare that doesn't leave bruises on the skin, but scars on the soul. The kind of suffering that doesn't show up in X-rays, but shakes your identity to its core. And you kept walking. You kept showing up with grace. You kept being kind when cruelty was thrown at you like daggers. And they thought that meant they were winning. They thought their quiet destruction was working. But little did they know, every attempt to break you was building something divine inside of you. Every wound was watering the seed of something they couldn't destroy, your purpose. You see, people can only take from you what you allow them to define, and you refused to let their betrayal define your worth. You refused to let their rejection determine your destiny. Yes, it hurt. Yes, you cried. Yes, you questioned everything, but you never stopped moving. You never gave them the satisfaction of watching you fall apart. And now the very silence they used as a weapon is becoming the platform for your rise. Because while they thought silence was a trap, you turned it into training. You used it to get still, to get clear, to get strong. You used it to reconnect with God, to rediscover yourself, to remember what they tried so hard to make you forget. That you are chosen, that you are favored, and that nothing formed against you shall prosper. They thought there'd be no evidence of what they did, but the evidence is in your strength. The evidence is in your peace. The evidence is in how you carry yourself, in how you speak with wisdom, in how you walk with calm power. The evidence is in your glow, the one that can't be explained by circumstances alone, the one that only comes from surviving what was meant to destroy you. And now, without even speaking their names, without ever revealing the details, your life is telling the truth. Your healing is the evidence, your rise is the testimony. You didn't need to broadcast the betrayal. You didn't need to expose anyone. You didn't need to get even, because you understand now what they meant for evil, God is using for your good. You've learned that you don't have to defend yourself when God is your defender. You don't have to clear your name when your character will speak louder than their accusations ever could. You've learned that quiet attacks produce loud victories, and that the most dangerous thing you can do to someone who tried to break you in silence is to rise so boldly, so fully, so joyfully, that your very existence becomes a contradiction to their plan. Let them pretend it didn't happen. Let them rewrite the narrative. Let them act like you were never supposed to be anything more than what they saw in their limited view, because what they think doesn't matter anymore. What they tried to hide is being brought to the surface, not through revenge, but through your elevation. And every door that's opening for you now is a door they tried to close. Every opportunity coming your way is a reminder that God's grace is louder than their sabotage. So rise, not to prove them wrong, but to prove to yourself that even in the silence, you were never alone. Even in the darkness, you were being prepared for the light. They thought there'd be no trace of what they did, but look at you now. You're the evidence. Your rise will be your loudest response. There comes a time when words no longer matter, when explanations fall on deaf ears, and your side of the story is met with silence or disbelief. So instead of talking, you rise. Instead of arguing with people who are committed to misunderstanding you, you let your life do the speaking. Because your rise, quiet, steady, and undeniable, will say everything that needs to be said. They tried to tear you down piece by piece, hoping you'd lose your voice, your vision, and your value. But what they didn't see coming was this version of you, the one who chose growth over bitterness, elevation over retaliation. They thought they were writing your ending, but they were just setting the stage for your beginning. And now, without uttering a single word, without clapping back or seeking revenge, you are becoming the very thing they tried to destroy. Powerful, grounded, unstoppable. Your rise will be your loudest response because it doesn't need permission. It doesn't need applause. It just happens. It happens in how you walk now, with your head held higher, your spirit calmer, your heart lighter. It happens in how you speak, not to prove a point, but with wisdom and peace that only comes from surviving what should have broken you. They expected you to stay stuck in the pit they dug for you. They never expected you to climb out with grace and keep moving forward like the chains never held you. But that's the beauty of rising in silence. No announcement, no explanation. Just progress. Just momentum, just transformation, and that speaks louder than anything they tried to say about you. Let them talk, let them whisper, let them speculate, because the more you elevate, the less you need to explain. You were never meant to convince people of your worth. You were meant to live in it. And when you do that, when you stop shrinking, stop hiding, stop apologizing for surviving, it shakes the very foundation of every lie they told. It rattles the chains they tried to keep you in, because they were counting on your silence to be permanent. They were hoping you'd stay down, but instead you rose, and you did it without noise, without fanfare, without needing anyone to validate your journey. You just kept going, and every step you take now is thunder in the ears of those who tried to bury you. They thought breaking you would silence your future, but instead it shaped your purpose. And now, your success will be the echo they can't escape. Your healing will be the proof they can't deny. Because your rise isn't just about bouncing back, it's about evolving into someone they no longer recognize. You're not who you were when they hurt you. You're stronger, wiser, quieter, but deeper, and they feel it. Even if they never say it, they feel it. They see the glow, they hear the shift, they sense the strength. Because rising changes your presence. It's in your posture, in your peace, in your power. It's in the way you no longer engage in petty battles, because you've realized your destiny is bigger than their drama. There is a power that comes with rising without speaking, a sacred kind of vengeance that doesn't destroy your soul in the process. See, when you let your growth speak for itself, when you let the fruit of your transformation do the talking, you protect your peace and your purpose. You don't stoop to their level, you ascend to your own, and every closed mouth that once cursed you will have to open wide when they see the grace and favor on your life, not because you forced it, but because God's hand cannot be hidden. The anointing on your life cannot be denied, and your rise will be the undeniable evidence that favor isn't loud, but it's louder than every lie whispered against you. They didn't expect you to rise without them. They thought you needed their approval, their applause, their acceptance. But now they're watching you thrive in rooms they tried to lock you out of. Watching you step into joy they said you'd never find. Watching you build a life of peace they thought they took from you. And the best part, you're doing it without a grudge, without a speech, without bitterness in your heart. Just elevation, just growth, just power under control, because that's the real comeback, not just success. But peace, not just rising, but rising with joy. So don't explain, don't argue, don't plead your case. Just keep showing up. Keep healing, keep glowing. Let your rise preach the sermon they tried to silence. Let your transformation become the mirror they never wanted to face, because your rise, unspoken, undeniable, and divinely orchestrated, is the loudest response you will ever give. And those who tried to break you, they'll have no choice but to watch in silence, the same way they tried to hurt you in silence. But now, it's you walking in purpose, you walking in light, you rising without saying a word, and speaking volumes with every step forward. Elevation needs no announcement. Let your life speak. You don't need a microphone to make noise in this world. Your rise, your walk, your transformation is louder than anything you could ever say. See, when people tried to break you in silence, they assumed the damage would stay hidden. They thought their quiet attacks would never echo beyond the shadows. They planned their betrayal so carefully, so quietly, that even you began to question what was real. They used smiles as masks, kindness as manipulation, and silence as a weapon. And in that silence, they hoped you'd crumble. But what they forgot is this: silence is not only the battleground of pain, it's also the training ground of purpose. While they moved in secrecy to tear you down, God was building you up. While they operated in whispers, heaven was speaking destiny over your life. And now, here you are, not with a shout, not with a spectacle, but with quiet power in your stride, rising higher than they ever imagined. Because elevation needs no announcement, let your life speak. You see, true power never begs to be noticed. It never needs a spotlight. It never pleads for applause. The real kind of power, the kind forged in fire, the kind grown in the dark, moves silently and speaks in results. And that's who you've become. They thought if they didn't clap for you, you'd never rise. They thought their silence would suffocate your dreams. But what they didn't know is that you never needed their validation to rise. You needed isolation to transform. You needed space. You needed that crushing season. You needed the betrayal, the rejection, the silence. Not because you deserved it, but because God was teaching you how to stop depending on the noise and start depending on Him. And now, the people who once ignored you can't ignore what you've become. The ones who turned their backs when you were down are now being forced to watch your come up with eyes wide open and mouths shut. There's a certain kind of glory in letting your life become the answer to every rumor, every doubt, every attempt to break you. You don't have to defend yourself. You don't have to replay the pain. You don't even have to speak their names. Just live, just rise, just walk in everything they said you'd never have, because every success you step into now is a strike against the lies they told. Every opportunity, every breakthrough, every door that opens in your favor is a declaration that says, God was with me the whole time. They thought your silence meant defeat. They thought your retreat meant retreat forever. But all it meant was preparation. What looked like isolation was elevation in disguise. What looked like failure was just foundation. And now that foundation is rising beneath your feet, and you're standing taller than ever without needing to say a word, they never imagined you'd survive without them. They thought cutting you off would end your story. They thought excluding you would shrink your spirit. But your soul doesn't shrink, it expands. And while they were busy trying to block your light, they forgot that stars shine in the dark. They forgot that pressure creates diamonds. And now you're walking around, battle-tested, wiser, sharper, glowing with a peace they can't manufacture. And the best part, you didn't post about it. You didn't announce it. You didn't scream it from the rooftops. You just became it. You just kept growing, kept healing, kept pressing forward when everything in you wanted to quit. And now, your life has become your voice. Your peace has become your statement. your discipline has become your defense. They don't need to hear you anymore. They see you. And what they see now is someone who refuses to be broken by the same weapons that were once meant to destroy them. Let your life speak. Let your consistency speak. Let your growth, your discipline, your joy, your calm spirit, all of it, do the talking, because there's something unshakable about a person who no longer needs to prove anything. When you stop chasing validation and start embodying purpose, the game changes. You walk differently, you breathe differently, you see differently, and people take notice. Even the ones who act like they don't see you, they see you. Even the ones who pretend to be unbothered, they feel the shift. Because truth has a frequency, and when you live in alignment with it, people feel it even when you say nothing. Your life starts preaching sermons you never have to speak. It starts revealing the lies without you having to expose them. And that is the power of rising in silence. No one can deny what they see with their own eyes, even if they tried to pretend you'd never make it. See, elevation is often quiet because it's holy, it's sacred. It's not for the crowd, it's for the called, and you've been called. That's why you couldn't stay in the pit. That's why every attempt to break you only made you stronger. That's why you don't need revenge, you've got revelation. And revelation brings reward, so don't look back. Don't try to correct their version of your story. Just keep writing your own. Keep building, keep walking, keep choosing peace over pettiness. Because your presence, your progress, your resilience, they're all louder than any apology you never received and any closure you never got. You don't need closure when God is the one opening the next chapter. This is your moment, not a performance, not a rebuttal, just a rise that's happening in plain sight. A rise so graceful, so undeniable, that even your enemies are taking notes. A rise that requires no introduction, no justification, no loud celebration, just obedience, consistency, and faith. So keep showing up, keep smiling with a healed heart, keep working in silence and letting the results speak volumes. Because every time you rise without announcing it, without needing the crowd, without needing the noise, you remind the world and yourself that favor doesn't shout, destiny doesn't debate, purpose doesn't perform. It just moves, and it moves in silence. Let your life speak. That's all you ever needed to do. God saw everything they tried to hide. Now He's lifting you up. There is no silence that can hide what God has seen. There is no secret plan, no whispered betrayal, no unseen tear that has slipped past His divine attention. They may have tried to break you in silence, thinking no one would know, thinking their manipulation and quiet cruelty would never be exposed. But what they failed to understand is that God is not blind. While they were plotting in the shadows, heaven was watching. While they were smiling in your face and stabbing you in the back, God was keeping record, not out of vengeance, but out of justice. And now, the same God who saw the pain you couldn't put into words, the confusion that left you sleepless, and the silent screams you buried inside your spirit, is the same God who is lifting you, not to make a scene, but to make a statement. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, not even ones formed in silence. They tried to use your kindness against you, didn't they? They thought because you stayed quiet, you were weak. Because you kept your composure, you were naive. But what they couldn't see was the strength it took to stay silent, to keep your dignity, to keep your head when everything in you wanted to scream. They never knew how many nights you cried out to God, how many times you had to talk yourself out of reacting, how often you had to swallow the bitterness just to protect your own peace. They never saw the spiritual warfare going on behind your calm face. But God did. God saw every moment. He saw how you kept sowing good when you were reaping pain. He saw how you chose grace over revenge and truth over manipulation. And because you chose faith over fury, now He's lifting you. Not to prove a point, but to fulfill a promise. There's something about divine elevation that humbles you. It doesn't come from hustling people or forcing opportunities. It comes from a heart that's been broken and still chose to serve, from a spirit that's been bruised but still chose to believe. That's what makes your rise different. It's not a response to your haters. It's a response to your obedience. While they were breaking you in silence, God was building your character. They saw your suffering as weakness, but God saw it as preparation. You were never buried. You were planted. And now, without you needing to say a word, the fruit of your endurance is starting to show. The doors are opening, the opportunities are multiplying, the favor is chasing you down, not because you fought back, but because you knelt down, not because you proved them wrong, but because you proved God right when he said, "Be still, and know that I am God." They mocked your stillness. They misread your peace as passivity, but while they were busy trying to manipulate the narrative, God was writing your comeback. Not a loud, flashy one, but a solid, steady, undeniable rise that even your enemies can't ignore. And now they're watching with confusion, watching how the one they tried to silence is the one God is spotlighting, watching how the person they tried to break in private is walking in blessings in public, watching how the story they tried to write is being rewritten by grace and glory. And the beauty is, you're not doing it for them. You're not rising to spite them. You're rising because the assignment on your life didn't expire when they mishandled you. The oil on your name didn't dry up when they walked away. In fact, God used their betrayal to deepen your dependence, sharpen your discernment, and elevate your spirit. You are now walking proof that God's justice doesn't always come with lightning and thunder. Sometimes it comes through peace, through restoration, through growth so undeniable, it exposes every lie without you having to lift a finger. That's what's happening now. God is lifting you in a way that doesn't just bless you. It reveals everything they tried to hide. Because when God elevates someone, it's never about showing off, it's about showing him. It's about displaying his faithfulness, his mercy, his power to turn what was meant for evil into something beautiful. And that's what he's doing with your life, taking the ashes and turning them into beauty, taking the silence and turning it into strength, taking what tried to break you and using it to build the very platform he's calling you to stand on. And now you understand the silence wasn't punishment, it was positioning. The hidden seasons weren't delays, they were development. You were never forgotten, you were being formed, and now, without you needing to vindicate yourself, God is doing what only he can do. He's exalting the humble.